You know what? Yeah, I like music.
Good for you.
There's no other easy way to say it, but music is subjective. It's diverse. It ranges. There's all sorts of different ways to pick it apart and listen to it. You could be like other people and listen to nothing but Brazilian funk 24 hours a day, or you could be like me and try to separate the audio channels in your brain. It's fun getting to pay close attention and hear the drum machine, but an area that hasn't garnered much popularity when it comes to the top of the charts until the late 2010s, that is the indie scene. It's always been a thing, but a lot of the indie artists from yesteryear clearly aren't as remembered as the stars from today. But what about the indie scene from way back then, as in before the internet? Well, while digging around my CD library one day, I discovered 2 CDs containing albums by a band I had never heard of before. I did some research and there's almost nothing noteworthy regarding this group, not even a Wikipedia page or even a single interview from one of its members. This band's lack of noteworthiness has proven so crazy it's led me down an insane hobbit hole because it's not big enough for a rabbit, and after all of my research, I am proud to share this discovery with you all. Introducing Shake the Faith. Wait, not like that! Shake the Faith is a rock band that existed from at least 1986 until at least 2001. Born and raised in the capital city of Boston, Massachusetts. Usually that opener is a lot more detailed, but since these guys have basically nothing to their name, I'm gonna do the same. The band is virtually unknown, and many of the sources I went to seem to get basic facts about them completely wrong. From my understanding, the group has at least these 2 albums definitively attached to their name, but they're not the only music act under that name. There's also Shake the Faith, as in the dynamic trio of Curry Powers, Todd Stevens, and John Weed. Shake the Faith, as in the fanatic fivesome of Dave Ericon, Tommy Thayer, Brian Jennings, Kenny Queens, and David Parker. No, sir. This Shake the Faith in question is comprised of vocalist and guitarist Casey Lindstrom, vocalist and bassist Todd Erickson, and drummer Jesse Mayer. The first of these 2 albums in my possession, simply titled Shake the Faith, was released in 1987 by One Way Recordings, located in Somerville, Massachusetts. Looking at where the address of their headquarters is based on the address given on the back of both CDs, it looks apparent that the label is no more, as all that stands in its place is some house complex. Yet the label's website is still up for some reason. As for the band's background, we'll discuss the trio individually. Starting with Lindstrom, he's been an instrumentalist and vocalist for the majority of his career, and most notably has done work with the more infamous rock star Rick Ocasek, producer for songs by bands such as Weezer, The Wannadies, No Doubt, and Bad Religion, in addition to being a member of the synth rock band The Cars. Before Shake the Faith, Lindstrom was a member of the New Models, whose hit single Sight and Sound was also produced by Ocasek. He was a member of the group from their inception until 1980, until their breakup 3 years later. In the meantime, he played lead guitar for his buddy Ocasek during his Beatitude tour. Like Shake the Faith, I also did not learn about any of this until today. According to Lindstrom's page on the One Recordings website, he did not take the band's split very well, and began looking to his peers to form a new band in their place. That leads us to drummer Jesse Mayer, also known by Jesse Von Kenmore, I think. Discogs may be wrong, but they're probably closer than RateYourMusic.com. They don't even have them on there! Born in Norway, maybe, this is not his first nor his last rodeo, as he's also been parts of other small groups such as Diablo Gato, The Marvels, Wild Zero, and Fingerpaint. You don't care, do you? So far, Meyer seems to be the most active member of the group, as he is still making music as of 2019. As for Todd Erickson, the linear notes don't give him much attention, but based on Discogs, he was previously a member of Still Missing. Yes, really. With the 3 together hand in hand, they completed a 7-track album, or EP, depending on what you base your standards on, and, well, I don't know. Right now, both albums are only available either secondhand, digitally through a website that nobody goes to get their music from, or not at all. No sales figures exist to tell us how well the album sold, so let's imagine that it either did marginally well, if at all, or is just niche. Here is my copy of 1987 Shake the Faith, which we'll refer to as self-titled for the rest of this video on CD. This appears to be a reissue from around the time of their follow-up release Revival, as the cover art is a bit different. I also own a copy of self-titled on vinyl with the original album cover and generic paper label. Well, it looks like we're in for a treat today, so let's get rockin'. Join me now, as on today's sister show, we're gonna be listening to both albums by Shake the Faith, a band listened to by a few, and determining whether or not they should be listened to by you. Let's get rockin'!
Illusion
Starting things off, self-titled of course has the band doing their respective roles against 7 tracks for a total album length of about 28 minutes. Joining them on the production side are engineer Phil Green, assistant engineer Ralph Petarka, executive producer H. Brooks Whelan Jr., and the cover art was designed by Jill R. Weinstein and photographed by Min Michelov. Now for the opening track on self-titled, Wild World. The opening riff gives me vibes akin to Born in the USA in regards to how the synth drums and guitars have the sense of grandliness and prestige to them. The lyrics are very rooted in the pop music scene of the late 80s, as it's clearly an attempt to conceive radio fodder, but it's still a good effort. The lyrics can serve as something of an introduction to the band in the sense that it's not just a wild world, it's their wild world, and you're invited to come along for the ride.
In the wild world, in the wild world, the wild world today. It's a wild world, it's a wild world. Don't be afraid.
Then on track 2, things get much more hardcore with Already Gone. Ironic in the sense that the poppiness of the album is turned into more general rock and roll, and it has vibes akin to a ZZ Top or Night Ranger song, though admittedly some of the synth has the qualities of a MIDI demo rather than something with a big budget. Again, it's indie rock.
Funny, but it seems we go on, never say never. Just set me free. All this now forever, just too long. Already gone, on too long. Already gone. Already gone, on too long. Already gone.
I finally began feeling more of a groove on track 3, Skip on a Record, thanks to its opening synthesizer chords and a greater sense of focus. That being said though, the lyrics are also very minimal and dangerously generic in terms of thematics. The chorus never feels like it seems to bridge back into the verses, so you're just listening to the lead singer tell you that you know who you are, a skip on a record, over and over again. And let me tell you, it does get annoying pretty fast. And I've never felt annoyed while listening to music before. For track number 4, That's What We're In For, the song gives off the vibes of end credits music. You know, the happy feel-good pop number that plays at the end of every 80s blockbuster movie. Think classics such as Danger Zone, Holding Out for a Hero, Maniac, and Today Is Alright for Tonight, heavy on synth.
That's what we're in for. Use what you have. That's what we're in for. That ain't so bad.
The song's lyrics are a much-needed improvement, feeling much more concentrated than the others, and it's much easier to identify a subject in the song, this being the narrator telling you that it's time to buckle up and get ready for a new adventure. The clapping intro of track number 5, Believe in Me, really does make you question if you want to do the title of the song a favor and believe in it. This one is a much-needed breather after 4 basic rock tracks in a row, instead being a sentimental soft rock ballad, and I love soft rock. The infomercial ruined my life, you know. So do Do I believe in Me? Yeah! This is so far my favorite track on the album. While it does immediately go back into the more generic rock sound, its more emotional core makes it stick the landing a lot better than what came before, and the band's drum-heavy composition style works a lot better here. And I love how the guitar solos have actual thematics to build themselves off of, so you get a more clear tone of voice in comparison to the others. While it is a little inconsistent when it comes to which style of rock it wants to be more like, it is nonetheless a highlight of the album and self-titled's defining moment. Track number 6, Mixed Emotions, begins with more synth-heavy instrumentation, and the BPM has similarities to Depeche Mode style of composition. The guitars are beginning to find their groove, and the way synth is used in the song is more properly implemented, and doesn't feel forced in an attempt to ensure that the record will be topping the radio charts. That's what I've felt with the album so far. It has this need to sound popular, and as such, it hurts the band's ability to make a name for themselves that will ensure that they stick out in the crowd.
All you can say, or you can't go. There's nothing to say. You don't even know. Looking back, trying hard to see mixed emotions.
The final track, Whipping Boy, starts with a riff similar to another hit record that released 7 years later. But immediately gets on its own 2 feet and offers something different. The subject of the song is the narrator telling their significant other that they promise to not be a whipping boy again. But the song doesn't do a good job indicating what a whipping boy is. Is whipping boy meant to be sexual? Is it about abuse? What exactly is bro yapping about? And similar to That's What We're In For, it also sounds like it could pass as the ending to a movie. But here, more so the end of an early 2000s Disney Channel movie.
And I know you're lying, 'cause I see it in your eyes. If all we got, you know it's dying, 'cause you killed it with your lies. You killed it with your lies. And I'll never be a whipping boy again. I'll never be a whipping boy again. I'll never be a whipping boy again. I'll never be a whipping boy again.
The song isn't necessarily bad, but it's so focused on trying to sound popular that it ends up losing its focus and can't decide on if it wants to win over listeners with its lyrics or with its compositions. And by the time you finally get to process what it is that you've listened to, the album's over. Did the Friends theme song rip off Shake the Faith? Now, I've never done a music review before, so I looked back at my personal favorite albums to figure out what I'd like to get out of them, in order to understand and formulate the way I feel about self-titled. The best way to describe my personal taste in music is that I'm more into songs with funky rhythms, lyrics pertaining to either romance or weirdness, and songs that make you feel good. Self-titled does prove skilled in regards to making me feel like I'm listening to one of those moldy-oldie records, but the thing that gets me is that it doesn't have much of an impact into regards to its sound. To me, the sound of self-titled overall just felt the same. I've listened to other albums where all the tracks sound like that and came out unscathed, but here, I don't think it makes for a good look. To me, self-titled feels like a bunch of chaser songs, where the group has the look and feel of a trend-setting pop group, but doesn't have much staying power to actually be trend-setting. Much of the album's pop-oriented sound is still nice to listen to, but you don't really get much out of it in the end. Like, it's not a bad album, it's just nothing. You don't really get a lot in return when listening to it. Now, if I were to rank the songs in the album, at number 7, my least favorite song is Whipping Boy. Not only is it such an abrupt conclusion to the album, but it's the one that made me realize just how numb this album can be. You don't get much out of it, and while it's a nice listen, its lyrics just take me out of it. For number 6, that spot goes to Already Gone. Nice rock song with some good variety in sound, but not much else writing it. At number 5, Mixed Emotions. It strikes me as being too slow yet too fast at the same time, and while I do like the instrumental break, its lyrics are again what makes me turn it off. It's just too lacking in a basic theme, and doesn't get an idea across. Is that necessarily a bad thing? No, but usually when it comes to romance songs, I prefer them having a clearly specified subject. The song is just too vain, and you'll probably think it's about you if you overthink it hard enough. Coming in at number 4 is Skip on a Record. Despite its obnoxiously repetitive chorus, its opening chords are really nice, and it's one of the album's best sounding tracks, and while its annoyingly aggressive lyrics do kill the vibe for me, when separating the lyrics from the instruments, I can see myself chilling out to it. And now for the top 3. Coming in at third is Believe in Me, both the longest track and of course the most sentimental. It makes great use of synth in comparison to the other songs, and while it's still not one of the best songs I've heard in my entire life, I do think it's one of the album's highlights. Then the second runner-up, Wild World, a good introduction to both the album and the group, and I must admit that it's definitely the most musically distinct of the 7 tracks. That's because this is the only single issued from the album, and possibly their only single ever. Definitely a good way to introduce an average Joe to the group, but like the rest of the album, gets lost in the sea of other 80s boy bands. Finally, at number 1, we have That's What We're In For, taking the top spot as the best track on Self-Titled. Without a doubt, the one song on the record that sticks out the most and does a much better job making a name for the band, even if it sounds like a generic movie credits song. It's definitely the one song on the album that I can definitely see myself adding to my playlist if given the chance to. Yeah, before we continue, I need to make it abundantly clear that Shake the Faith's catalog is not available on streaming. Unless you own the albums on CD, you can only buy the albums via MP3 files on that aforementioned website. The closest you can get to a streamable Shake the Faith album is the unrelated Five Some and their 1994 release America the Violent. Discogs for some reason considers this a bootleg release by Lindstrom and Company, even though it's clearly just 2 different groups with the same name. Boy, I sure hope somebody got fired for that blunder. Since I don't have America the Violent, we're not going to be talking about it here. Now back on the Self-Titled, my overall thoughts that while the album is well produced, sounds great, and proves to be a good easy listening album, there isn't much in terms of longevity I can really say about it. It's a pop record from the late 80s in a new wave rock style that sounds good, could be better, but at the same time could also be a lot worse. It's a good first impression for the group, and it does show that Lindstrom has talent when paired in a group like this. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10 for its efforts. On its own, the album is just average. So what happened to Shake the Faith after the release of Self-Titled, you might be asking? Well, the group did manage to gain a cult following through the Boston underground rock scene. They made a couple live performances, debuted some new material, I think, appeared on the local show Your Mother's on the Roof.
The name,
Are you sure this is Charles Lockwood?
Yes, it is. Test me. Ask me
All
something.
right. Who used to own Irving's Cafe in Brookline?
What do you know? What a stupid thing is that to say? How would I know that? Irving's Cafe?
If you know Irving's Cafe, you know what street it was on.
I don't know Irving's Cafe. I don't know anything about Brooklyn.
You're not Charles Lockwood.
Wait a minute. Give me another test. How can you say that to me? I'm not...
Charles Lockwood would know where Irving's was, and you know who owned it.
I would not have no idea. Hello?
Hello, I'm still here.
I have no idea what Irving's is, where Irving's is. Give me another test. Ask me what BCN's call letters are.
And Self-Titled won the Boston Music Award for Independent Rock. But after that, the group basically went into hiding for the entirety of the 1990s. But then, sometime between 1998 and 1999, the group reconvened and decided that it was time to give us the long-awaited follow-up album, 2000's appropriately titled Revival. Like Self-Titled, the majority of the production team on Revival remains the same, with the exception being the new album cover, now produced and designed by Joe Niedbala at Elegant Violence Graphics, the notable absence of engineers as Ralph Patarka does not appear while Phil Green returns as co-producer, and the band receives co-writing credit alongside Lindstrom on all of the songs, whereas on Self-Titled, Lindstrom was credited as sole songwriter on all but 2 of the 7 tracks. Combined, all 7 tracks give the album a total runtime of 24 minutes. Well, I'm lowering my expectations for exaggeration. Sure, Self-Titled might have blown in a couple of areas, but given how rapidly the musical landscape was changing over the course of those 10 years of nothing, surely it can't be any better or worse, right? Beginning Revival is the opening track, Against the Wall. While Wild World was pretty quick to get straight into the thick of it, Against the Wall did something different that quickly made me change my tone about the group. my god. Being one of the group's shorter songs, its minimal lyrics work much better here in regards to what appears to be a complete rebrand of the group. While Self-Titled was best described as an alternative rock boy band pop record, Against the Wall shifts the group into a much more hardcore direction and takes more influence from metal music and the more hardcore rock scene that was seen in the music sphere during this time. Example groups I can compare the sound to include The Offspring, Crush 40, The Tigray, and Oasis. Against the Wall proves itself as being not only a much better introduction and great reintroduction to the group, it also shows growth in the group's sound quality and lyrical content, as while most of Self-Titled comprised of basic pop-sounding feel-good songs, Revival kicks things off with a much darker tone, and the guitar solo really does make you imagine the singer being thrown against the wall. Literally! From there, things continue to get better, as track 2, the almost 5-minute long Cross the Line, really feels much more conjoined in regards to how his melodies go hand in hand with the verses, as now the rhythm is much more clearly defined, and you get a sound that's a lot easier to pay attention to. As a result, the songs feel like they go by a lot faster as opposed to droning on and on in the case of Self-Titled, and as such, I was a lot more amped up when listening to the song.
I got my mind made up. Got in so deep that now I'm stuck. And our love got hard to find. When you cross the line, lost the feeling that there's nothing left to share. You never knew how much I cared.
Onwards, the album's lyrics do tell of a semi-narrative, with a generally political theme evident in some of the other songs we'll get to in a minute. But overall, Cross the Line is the polar opposite of the longest song on Self-Titled, Believe in Me, where while with that song it's slow and hard to get into, this song is much more fast in terms of pacing and tempo, and very easy to feel the groove with. Track number 3, Here It Comes Again, continues the sounds in a way that made me realize just how much of an improvement in sequencing this album is in comparison to Self-Titled. It definitely has more qualities in common with the sounds of the songs than Self-Titled, but is a lot more refined and fine-tuned in comparison to the corresponding third track on Self-Titled, Skip on Our Record. While the lyrics on both songs are pretty minimal, Here It Comes Again is a lot more focused in regards to what it's trying to say, giving a description of the figure the narrator is singing about and the proper definition of what it means in regards to how the narrator feels about the figure he's talking about talks, walks, dresses, and fourth thing. While it sounds like a deleted song off of Self-Titled, I'd imagine that this song must have been one of the earliest tracks written for the album, as while Revival has no traces of synthesizers, it definitely sounds like it was written with some more synth sounds in mind. Still, a nice listen to chill with.
Got a brand new pain, I can't explain. Here it comes again. Come take away the things you said. Here it comes again, comes again.
Track number 4 is probably the most aggressive song on the album, Throw Me to the Wolves. Not a joke. It's here where the more political themes on the record begin to sparkle and shine, as the narrator speaks of two different viewpoints, an authority figure shaming the narrator, while the narrator is much more apathetic, self-centered, and as the song goes, tells the higher authority, you can throw me to the wolves.
All your flags. No one needs to know you've been dying. I sense raise your victory flags. Everybody out there, they've been lying. So you throw me. You can throw me. You can throw me. You can throw me.
friends are both big and former metalheads, so I feel like this is one of the easiest songs by the group to recommend. I'd say that this song's subject matter is a bit more mature, but that'd be stretching. There's a lot of things you can rebel against authority over, both good and bad. Coming in at number 5 is the most blatantly political song on the album, Election Day. Definitely the most grunge-sounding track on the album, but if you ask me to compare it to other political records like American Idiot, for example, I'd call that a bit of a far cry, but close. The lyrics of the chorus start with the narrator talking about being chased down by authorities, being called an inspiration by the masses, followed by a condemnation of narcs, a complaint about the rich hoarding the wealth, culminating in the chorus of raise your hands, you know you'll get your way, a brand new man was born on election day.
You're living on the streets, but you gotta Vietnam. There's never food to eat. Well, we built a better bomb. Rich keep getting richer while the rest of us stay poor. I'm gonna take my chance right now, even up the score. Raise your hands, you know you'll get your way. Brand new man was born election day, yeah.
Now, like most of you, I don't really like politics, but I do like Election Day and think it's definitely one of the album's biggest highlights. Even the band agrees with that sentiment. It's the most clear-cut and well-articulated song in the album, and it's a great advancement in their sound. And the best part, it segues right into the next song, the even more aggressive Ready to Die. It's very easy to tell that Revival is meant to be a political concept album in regards to how the song lyrics all tie into specific aspects of American political culture. Plus, the album was released in one of the most infamous election years in recent American history, though I'd imagine the album's overall message is more surface level, and not exactly some grandiose message I can find on albums like Animals and basically the entire Rage catalog. Ready to Die makes various callbacks to previous tracks in its lyrics, mentioning the line that was crossed back in track 2. You can argue that this is the culmination of the narrator's apathy scene in You Can Throw Me to the Wolves, and the possible anarchy undertones on Election Day coming together in the chorus line, if you're ready to die, you're ready to kill.
You got an idea what you're doing here, what you'd like to get. Why you hate to wait, 'cause you wait so long. It don't come easy, and you sign the line and you get your call. Sometimes it don't come at all. If you're ready to die, they're ready to kill. If you're ready to die, they're ready to kill.
Alongside being one of the band's most aggressive songs, it's also one of the few songs where they swear.
I won't fight 'em, I'll just make this shit up.
I will admit, though, that Ready to Die is one of the band's more wearable songs, where the more times you listen to it, the less you want to. Sometimes good guitar solos just aren't enough to keep a song's replayability in check. Lastly, Revival ends on the 7th and final track, Nothing Lost.
Brand new house, brand new car, the country club says you're going far. Took no time for you to sell your soul. You're falling down 'cause you dug your own hole. Check it. Nothing lost, nothing is gained. Nothing lost, nothing is gained. No, 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 no. Nothing lost, nothing is gained. Nothing lost, nothing is gained.
Coming into this band over 20 years after the release of this album, the chorus of the song ironically mirrors what my initial thoughts were when beginning this project. Nothing Lost ends the album on a pretty down note, as if to say that we've been listening to the band basically going, "Goodbye, nobody cares about you and your stupid tonsil, you bitch! You fucker!" As if to say, "Goodbye, losers, nobody cares about you and your stupid tonsil. America fucking sucks. Smash the patriarchy, throw the tea in the Boston Harbor." And it's a very passive-aggressive song, as its lyrics are a bit too vague in regards to what it is the narrator has zero regards for. Is it to pass love? Authority? Is the narrator just done with life? And by the time you finally get to processing what you're hearing, the album's over. And that was Revival, a great improvement on the group's sound and abilities, and definitely the watershed moment the group needed in order to advance into the new millennium. I found this to be the group's best of the two albums, and its hard thrash rock sound helped build more of a proper identity for the band than self-titled did. While I really love synth rock, there is such a thing as too much synth. Now, when it comes to ranking the songs, in last place is Ready to Die. Not a bad song, just a bit too whiny, and a lot easier to get out of than the other songs, and as such, I don't have much left to say about it. At number 6 is Here It Comes Again, also not a bad song, but I find it a little unfocused and probably one of the songs I'd be least likely to add to my playlist. Good guitar, great chorus vocals, there's also just not a lot to it, and I guess that's what you can say about both albums and the group itself. Not a lot to it, both in terms of quality and legacy. Coming in at number 5 is Cross the Line. Definitely one of the drowsier songs on the album, and while it is also a good listen, I do find it harder to get back into the groove while listening to it on its own, and not as part of a listen through of the entire album. Again, very good, just painfully slow and takes forever to get started, which to me is a turnoff. At number 4 is Nothing Lost. What's keeping Nothing Lost out of the top 3 isn't anything to do in its quality. I do find it a good conclusion to the album. It's definitely one of the album's highlights. It just also feels like it takes forever to get started too. Like there's a part of me that just wishes it was just the chorus, and the absence of the groovier guitar during the main verses makes the song feel a little emptier if you ask me personally. Now for the top 3. Coming in at third is Throw Me to the Wolves, which is generally one of the best songs the group has made in like ever. It's also one of the more easy to recommend songs in the group's output, as I'd imagine it tickle the funny of any metalhead and make for a good listen in their eyes. In second place is Election Day, what the group considers to be the album's crown jewels. Definitely a bit of a stretch, but I still like the song and find it worthy of being in the top 3. Finally, at number 1 is surprisingly track number 1, Against the Wall. Why is the opening track the best track on this album? I just like high adrenaline rock sometimes, and this is such a head swinger. Like, it fits in perfectly, and you could probably mistake it for a Sonic Youth or Offspring to a song if you squinted really hard enough. But overall, Revival is a significant improvement over self-titled. And while not exactly one of my favorite albums, I do believe it has a spot on my top 3, right there, near the bottom. That doesn't mean it's not of quality though, as it's a great casual listen and a good gateway drug into Estonian culture. And for that, I give Revival a 7.3 out of 10. So what comes next for Shake the Faith, you might be asking? Well, that's kind of the end of our story. The group has not put out any new material since Revival. One of our recordings, despite their website still being up, is clearly long gone. Most of the band's social media presence is inactive and their website is long gone. And while the band has made a couple of reunions for live performances celebrating the history of the Boston rock scene, they're still virtually unknown to a lot of people, almost the entire world. Outside of some of the group's live performances, none of the band's output has ever been uploaded to YouTube in any capacity. Both albums are commercially unavailable, both in regards to not being available on streaming and very hard to find secondhand. And again, searching for Shake the Faith only brings you nothing but results for the unrelated America the Violet group. But after everything we've discussed today, there's still one question we need to answer. Should Shake the Faith be more than a short-lived, forgotten, obscure indie rock band? Well, while I'm not super into the band's output, I do find it pretty easy to get into, and I think of it as a very easy listening rock. So to answer the question, yes, I do think more people should listen to Shake the Faith. Sure, their original label may be long gone, but with the advent of the internet, maybe we can get them to come out of retirement and give us that elusive third album. But I wouldn't bet any money of that. These guys probably have wives and kids to go home to. So I doubt they're interested in writing another skip on a record anytime soon. For anyone who's curious to listen to the group's output themselves, I have uploaded both albums to the Internet Archive for you to listen to whenever you want and download. But if you want to obtain the group's output legally, the only way to do that digitally is again to go to that website. But even then, you can only get self-titled on that website. I couldn't find any way to purchase Revival. With me, I just got lucky, but for you, if you want to be a good Samaritan, you about got a long road ahead of you. Now, if you ask me to recommend a specific listening order, while I do prefer Revival over self-titled, I suggest that you listen to the group's output chronologically. That's what I did in order to suffer, so I think you should suffer the same fate too. And with that, that's gonna do it for this issue of the show. Join me next time, where instead of listening to music, we're gonna ponder to music and think about swallowing. I can only promise fun times from here on out. See you, everybody, and keep on rocking!